Kia ora and welcome, Graham Smith from ALEC here again. We're talking about what you need to know for part 2 of this training on Maori Literacy and Numeracy. Make sure you've got your NCALNE study guide and assessment guide handy in case you need to refer to them. Okay, just a quick heads up so you can see where we're up to in the training. This slide shows how the course tracks through the 7 basic areas required by the unit standards and the qualification. You need to complete the task 2 assessment, which relates to understanding Maori literacy and numeracy in Aotearoa, New Zealand. You can see on the left hand side there in the green box, Maori literacy, it's about in the 9 o'clock position. Your task here is to assess what you know about relevant background, initiatives, concepts and teaching approaches as informed by a Maori worldview. You need to know at least 4 examples of Maori literacy and numeracy pre-colonisation, at least 2 Maori-based adult literacy and numeracy initiatives, at least 2 initiatives post-colonisation and their connection to literacy and numeracy, and I'll explain the difference between pre-colonisation and post-colonisation in simple terms shortly. And you also need to be able to describe the various concepts and approaches that are in the course. At least 2 teaching approaches relevant to Māori and other adult learners. Okay, it's worth considering what you already know. It's a rich and interesting history if you want to delve into it in more detail. We don't have time to cover every aspect, and the things we do talk about, really we're just scratching the surface here. But the main thing is that you have some mental picture with regards to the broad contours of relevant history, and I guess that's what we've got on the screen here. We can have a look at this timeline, and any discussion that we have around this content for section 2 kind of fits in here somewhere. So pre-colonisation, we're talking about times prior to the 1800s, and post-colonisation, we're talking about any time after the 1800s, and that takes us to now, current issues, and kind of looking forward into the future as well. So for Māori, literacy and numeracy comes back to that definition that we looked at in the first part of the course. So you might remember that. Literacy and numeracy is the lifelong journey of building the capacity to read and shape Māori and other worlds. So you've got the example there with read in inverted commas in this case for the definition. So it's worth thinking about, what does that mean? What's the difference between read and read? Read without the inverted commas and read with the inverted commas. So have a think about that. It opens up other meanings for our discussion around literacy and numeracy. Have a look here and tell me what kind of literacy and numeracy you think is going on. And what about here? And here. So there are more examples in the study guide and in the readings, but hopefully that's just enough to get you started thinking about it. Literacy, in the sense that we're talking about it here, can refer to oral traditions, including waiata or singing, karakia or prayer, story, whakapapa or histories, as well as traditional arts and craft from Māori customary practice, including things like whakairo or carving, raranga, which is weaving, and of course what you see in the photograph here, which is tāmoko or tattoo. Okay, here's a short segment on Māori numeracy. I think you'll find there's quite a lot on Māori literacy if you Google it and do some reading around the subject, but there's not actually much on Māori numeracy. So personally I found this to be particularly interesting. Here's a couple of insights with regards to personal benchmarks for measuring from the world of Māori numeracy. Personal benchmarks are reference points or non-standard ways of remembering measurement. For example, you might know how much a block of cheese or a full bucket of water weighs. So here's some from Māori customary practice. So this is my friend again from earlier. What's he holding here? For those of you who don't know, it's a mere or patu, and it turns out that all the tools you need to measure and build a mere like this are part of your body. So let's have a look. In terms of the length, if you look at that middle photo, the length of the mere is pretty much from the crook of the inside of your elbow through to the ball of your hand, palm of your hand. That's the length. And then if you look at the first picture there, the wide part of the mere is the width of 4 fingers. And on the right hand side, if you look at the skinny end, the thin end of the mere, it's exactly the width of 2 fingers. So pretty cool. Here's another one, another weapon. This time it's a taiaha. And have a guess, what do you think the measurement for length is here? If you have a close look on the right hand side there, you can see that the taiaha comes right up to his earlobe. And I think there's a little bit of variation between different regions and different iwi, but pretty much you'll find similar types of measurements around the place, up to the chin or just under the chin or under the lip, and in this case just under the earlobe. So it means that each weapon was custom built by the owner for the owner. So there you go, just a little bit of interesting information on Maori numeracy. Just a brief word here about some of the historical context, and to return to our timeline, and that is just to say that there is a shape to this history. And prior to the arrival of the Europeans, Maori were highly literate and numerate within their own world and in terms of their own worldview. With the arrival of settlers, the uptake among Maori with regards to literacy and numeracy in English was extremely high. And however, this took a severe nosedive later as the Maori language and culture were marginalised during colonisation. And I guess if we were drawing a graph, we could start plotting a gradual renewal and resurgence in language and culture starting in the 1970s through to today. So that's a very simplistic and possibly reductionist view, but hopefully you can get an idea of the initial rise and then fall and then rise again of Maori literacy. So one of the issues now, of course, is not just around Maori literacy and numeracy, but literacy and numeracy for Maori, and have a think about the difference. Okay, one of the things that you need to research and write about for your assessment here is in relation to Maori-based adult literacy and numeracy initiatives. And again, the scope here is fairly wide, and we'd encourage you to go to the resources that you've been given, your study guide for example, and have a look. Also, you can have a look online. Try searching for Maori literacy initiatives as a Google search term, and you'll find all sorts of things, some of which are being updated, all the time. Just a note here, although not strictly adult initiatives, we do include the Kohonga Reo or Maori early childhood initiatives as part of this, as well as the Kura Kaupapa schools and the whare wānanga that provide tertiary education from a Maori worldview. But there are other initiatives, including workplace initiatives, that you can find out about.